everybody. Today we're going to be talking about 3 Google tools. Now, we all love Google, and I think we're all pretty comfortable with the main Google tools that we use on a pretty regular basis. But today we're going to talk about 3 potentially lesser known tools that I think could really be helpful in education in your classroom, or maybe even just for you personally. The 3 we're going to talk about today are Google Keep, Google Jamboard, and Google Earth. So you can see behind me here, we are going to start with Google Keep. So I'm going to eliminate myself from this screen here and talk to you a little bit about Google Keep and why I think it might be a good note-taking or even reminder tool for you to use. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to start with Google Keep. And at its core, Google Keep is a note-taking, list-making, task manager tool. You can get there in a couple of different ways, but the way I got there was just going to keep.google.com. As you also know, if you are logged on to Google and really any of their tools, you'll see this waffle over here. And by clicking here, you'll see Google Keep inside of this waffle Google Apps list as well. Google Keep is also really cool because if you are inside of Gmail or Google Drive, you'll see this little icon all the way on the right side of the screen, and you'll be able to click and add things to keep directly from those tools as well, which is great. All right, so I mentioned that this is a note-taking tool, and I want to show you a few of the features that this can do for you. So I'm going to start up here, and there are some options over here on the left, but I'm going to come back to those and show you that when you take a note, and I'm also going to mention that there is an app for this as well too, so you can take notes and get into this tool on your mobile devices as well. So when you take a note here, you can see I've got an option up here at the top, and one of the things you'll see is you can add in a title. So let's say, you can see I've got a couple of notes here where I have made some notes and a checklist for my new semester courses, things I need to keep in mind. So let's say I call this class notes, and then you can start taking a note here. So I might say, remember to check student list, copy Canvas course, okay, and so on. And I would make a whole bunch of notes here. So once you have your note and your notes, your note title and your note pieces written, or at least started, you can see that we've got a bunch of different options down here at the bottom. So let me go through these for you. You can set a reminder for yourself to be reminded of this note at some time. So you can set it for later today or tomorrow. You can also actually set a location where it would remind you when you're at that location, which is kind of cool. The next that's really powerful is you can add in collaborators. So you can work on notes together with people. You would collaborate with somebody much like you would add in a person to a Google Doc or to anything else you were collaborating with. So that's a really great feature to work with others. You can change colors. Notice I've got a couple of different colors here. So maybe you have notes on a couple of different classes, and all of one class, say section 001, are purple, and section 002, those notes are blue. You can certainly change the color of these notes to match whatever your color scheme is. You can also add images in that would give a little more context to what this note is about. So by clicking directly on our image icon here, I can bring in an image. Let me go ahead and do that now. Okay, I did bring in an image here that would represent maybe an image for my class. My class is mostly an online class, so this kind of represents my class for me. All right, the next is you can archive any note, and that just means that it's sent over here into this kind of, I've dealt with that note, I might want to come back to it later, but I don't need it on my main screen. That's what archiving is. A couple of more options here that we see under more. You can delete a note. You can add a label. So of course these labels, much like they do in other platforms, will label a note for you so you can more easily find them later. You can add a drawing. You can make a copy of the note. The show checkboxes is handy, I think, if you're checking things off. So if I did that, you can see now that I've got checkboxes, and if I scroll down a little bit here, you'll see what I can do if I have eliminated or I've finished something. So let's say I did this already. I would mark it, and it'll flip down here into the marked off area. Let me get back into this for us here. And then another thing I like is that you can copy these to Google Docs if you really want to do more with it in that platform. Okay, so Your notes will just sit down here in your main screen until you're ready for them, or you choose to archive or even delete them. You can also pin a note. So if this is something I want at the top and I want this to be something I see first all the time, you can pin something up here as well. This over here on the left just kind of gets you into those sections, so you can see all of your reminders that are set up. I don't have any here right now. You can edit your labels and add your labels to your notes that you've made, and anything that I've archived will show up in here as well. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. A couple ways I've seen this used. I just showed you I use this for my class to remind myself of some things I have that's coming up. One neat thing I've seen is, since this can be pulled into Google Drive, I've seen rubrics that are in here and can be pulled into Google Drive and kind of marked off as you give the feedback that you need to. Lots of different things you can do with this. And again, I think one of the more handy pieces is that you can collaborate these tools with others, or these notes rather, with others. So I have found it really helpful just to keep myself organized for things that I know are coming up, things that I want to make sure that I mark off. And it allows me to add to those notes from my mobile device anywhere I am. So this is Google Keep, maybe a lesser known Google tool, but a helpful one. Let's go over to Google Jamboard. All right, so Google Jamboard is, at its essence, a collaborative whiteboard app that you can work on with folks in real time if you choose to. I think Google Jamboard has gained some footing in the last probably year with so much remote learning going on, and I have found this to be used often in classes, and my students are starting to talk about their classes that are using it. So I will mention that you can get into this with jamboard.google.com, or from that waffle like I mentioned before. When you're inside of really any Google tool, there is also an app for Jamboard as well. All right, so a couple things to note here. Anything that you've worked on recently will be in your recent jams area here. If you want to start a new Jamboard, this button in the lower right hand corner, this plus, is where we'll start our new Jamboard. So I'll go ahead and start a new one and talk about some of the features that we'll use inside a Jamboard. All right, when you click on that button, you will see that we are taken to a blank Jamboard. Let's go ahead and title this. All right, so that we have that. This will automatically save, as all things do in Google. All right, so the first thing to note is that you've got tools over here on the left. Here is your pen that will allow you to... All right, one tip here is you might have a need to draw a straight line. If that's the case, if you hold down the Shift button and start to draw, it'll allow you, you see how it's going to be a straight line? We want to move out as far as we want it to go and then let go, and there's your straight line. So while using your pen is helpful, you might want that straight line, and your key there is to use the Shift button on your keyboard. Here's an eraser tool that will do exactly what it sounds like it's going to do, erase. Here's your select if you want to select something in the slide to twist or turn or do whatever you want to do with it. These are sticky notes, and these are really helpful for making notes on your Jamboard. So maybe students are making notes on things, or you're making a note to them. So to do that, you're going to click right on that sticky note. You can change your colors up here if you want. I'll just say note 1 and save. It's going to ask you if you want to do another one. Maybe I'll change colors here. Note 2, save, and so on. I'll go ahead and cancel if I'm done. This is where this select tool will allow me to grab it and move it around, twist it if I want to. Few options underneath here where we can duplicate it, delete it. Order will allow you to put things behind or in front of other objects on the screen. All right, you can also bring in an image. Now this might be handy if you want the students to comment on, say, an image for class. That would be really great here. Or you can actually bring in maybe a PDF that you have as an image that you want them to do an exercise with. Let me show you what I mean. I'll go ahead and bring one in. And actually this will allow me to go ahead and create the next slide, and I'll do it on this slide instead. All I did was move to the next to create a new frame is what they're calling it. So I'm going to go ahead and add an image in here and show you how you might use this. Okay, I brought in this, what was a PDF, is now an image, and it's kind of small, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Now this is obviously a ELA example. This could be anything, but this would allow the students to actually work kind of on a worksheet. and something pre-created that you have for them. So they could draw using the pen and write the answers in, but another thing they could use is this text box tool that's down here. If I click on this and I click on that line, I can type right inside of there, and there's my answer. So that's just one example of how you might bring in an image and have it be an exercise for students. Okay, so the another thing I skipped over here are some shapes and some circles that you can add on to your Jamboard. So here's a circle, here's an arrow I might want to use, and so on. This last is a laser pointer that just allows you to kind of point to something that you're demonstrating. Okay, so that's the gist of the tools off to the left over here. We've got a few things up here that are worth mentioning. You can change the background of any of these. Let's say you actually want this to look like pieces of paper that they're working on, or one that might be handy is grid lines if you're working on math or something that you want them to use grid lines for. So that set background is helpful. Clear frame is just what it sounds like. It's going to clear our frame for us. Not to worry though, we also have an undo button if you accidentally hit that. All right, coming up here to the top, I want to mention that if, see this dark or this light gray arrow pointing down, if I click on that, it'll expand the frames that I currently have. And I want to make sure that you see this because in the frames, there are 3 dots that will allow us to do a couple of other things. For example, you can delete out a frame or you can duplicate it. So if you set up this worksheet, let's say on one frame, and you're putting the kids into groups and you want to have that same frame 3 times so that each group is working on their own frame or own slide, you can do that. Once you have that set up, you can come over and say duplicate, and now I've got 3 frames that look the same. So you might say this is for group 1, this is for group 2, and this is for group 3. So that's an easy way to duplicate your frames. All right, I just want to point out a couple of other things before we wrap up Jamboard here. These 3 dots allow you to do a few other things that might be handy. You can download this as a PDF. So maybe you've worked on all of this and you want to share this back out to students so that they can keep a hold of the content that you guys worked on. You can do that. You can remove this, make a copy of it, and so on. Also note that there's a share button here, so this is going to be important if you are sharing this out to students to all connect to you with. You would need to share this, grab a link like you have done in the past, so that you can share this, just like you share a Google Doc or Google Slides or something like that. So in a nutshell, that's Jamboard. Again, as a reminder, this is a collaborative whiteboard piece that allows you and students to work together in a space where you can see each other working in real time. This works well in remote learning where you're all together and maybe you're putting them into groups and you want them to work, and you can jump between those frames and help them out as you need to. So again, this is Jamboard. Let's go on to Google Earth and finish out our tutorial. All right, I have transitioned us over to Google Earth, which I got to from earth.google.com. Takes a second to load, and then this is where it took us to. Now, if you've never been on Google Earth, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot here, but I want you to see that we have got several tools over here to the left to help us navigate through Google Earth. So if I click on our 3 menu dots there, they open up and you can see in words what some of these are. We're going to spend a little bit of time on these, but I want you to see that you can see the names here. And where we'll spend our time really is search, Voyager, I'll mention projects, and there's a cool measurement thing we can do on here as well. So at its simplest, Google Earth is showing us a snapshot of any place on Earth we would go to. And they're showing this to us through pictures and some 3D images and some really cool effects. So let's say we wanted to just search for something. Let's say I wanted to search for the Statue of Liberty. Let me go ahead and click on that, and it's going to zoom us there. All right, so there we are. And we have actually a couple of different options here that we could click on. Up here in the upper right hand corner, we're going to see where it took us to, and if we click on that, it'll take us to an image, and we can go right or left to view more images that are associated with the Statue of Liberty. It's a really cool way to see a place and stay right where you are. So you can search for any place. And actually, once we're there, let's say we actually want to take a look at this. We can click there instead and go to the pictures here. Or let's say I can kind of see there's a cool picture here. I want to go here and see what that is. Once you're to a location, you can see I've got 21 pictures here that I can flip through if I want to. Really cool photos of the skyline and so much else. But these are all things that you can click on. It makes virtual kind of field trips something that you can definitely do. I'm going to mention here, and I'll come back to this, is that you can add any of these to what is called a project inside of Google Earth. And that's something where students can actually put together their own, I'm going to again call it a field trip or a journey that consists of different places, and they're all saved within a project. You can also have other features inside of a project, but I just want to mention that when you go somewhere, you have this add to project option. So up here at the top is where you can search for anything. I'm going to jump down a little bit and show you this. It's a dice or a die, and it says, I'm feeling lucky. This is if you just kind of want to, as the icon might suggest, roll the dice and have Google Earth take you somewhere. What a fun thing this could be first thing in the morning maybe, or right before social studies or something. Let's see where Google Earth is going to take us today. So if I click this, it's going to zoom us somewhere. I have no idea where we're going to end up, but let's see. All right, so you can see we are at a cathedral in Colombia. So if I click on this, it's going to tell us more about it. Some text down here about it. I can flip through the pictures and learn more about where Google Earth just took us. When it was open, architectural style, and so on. And also a link to Wikipedia to learn more about this if we want. So we're in this general area now. So what if we wanted to explore maybe, this looks like it's a library. So let's take a look at that. Yes, it's a public library in Bogota, Colombia. So I can click on this. Once again, I've got add to project. I can see more information about it, which will give me, again, my pictures I can flip through. I'm such a sucker for libraries. And read more about it. And then it gives you a little bit more of a map of it as well. So the I'm feeling lucky is really just kind of a fun way to allow Google Earth to send us somewhere and learn more about a place. Okay. I'm going to jump back up here to Voyager and open up this. The idea behind Voyager is has all sorts of things in it, and you can see that we've got some headers here. They've got guided tours, we've got quizzes we could take, we have under the layers area, that'll tell us about rainfall, global temperatures, wind speeds. We've got a culture area, which will tell us about different cultures around us, and an education area, which will give us some cool kind of prepackaged exercises we can do on math and science. If we scroll down here, here's one on the Underground Railroad. Here's one on poetry around the world. This is just a neat area that has a little more organized content for us to take a look at. Voyager is definitely something to explore. The games area is fun. You can take little quizzes on different things. Here's one on U.S. presidents, musical instruments, museums around the world. So again, a little more organized, almost prepackaged kinds of things that might help you in the classroom that I really like. All right, so let's go back here. Now, I mentioned this a couple times. The projects area is meant to be an area where you or the students can add in different places that they might want to present on. Think of this as almost like a PowerPoint, but with interactive components to it. You can create a new project here. Here's one that I was just playing around with. But when you create a new project, you can save it in multiple locations. I'm going to go ahead and create it in Google Drive. And what I want to show you here is there are lots of different things that you can add into a project. You can search to add in a place. That's kind of what I was showing you before when you search and it says add to project. When you do that, you have a lot of things that you can add or that you can modify. So if it doesn't tell you much about the place, you can type in your own so students can really make those descriptions their own. And I believe you can also add in your own images as well. Another thing I wanted to mention is you can add in full screen slides. So if you have an introduction slide or you have other content you want to add to your project, in addition to the places that you're going to, the projects area allows you to do that. So this really opens up the doors to how students can present their findings on a place or a location around the world. My daughter is working on a country's project in school, and this would be such an amazing ad for them to present on what they've learned about their location. Okay, the last thing I want to mention is this neat, let me go ahead and close this out. This last one is a measurement tool, and I'm going to go ahead and click on this. This is neat because it allows us to measure between two places or more than two places. So let's say I was looking at how far is it from this university to this library that we were just at. So I'm going to click and drag a line over to here. And the first thing I want you to see, there we go, is up here it's showing us a distance. And I can change that from meters to kilometers, inches, feet, yards, miles, and so on. So you can change that. Now it's going to keep wanting to draw lines until I stop it or I come to a place where I've made a complete shape. So let's go ahead and do that. I want to show you what it's going to do. I'm going to click on this next place here, and you can see our distance obviously increased because we went to another place. But let's say I want to see the area of, or a perimeter of 3 locations together. So I'm going to put these together. And when I make my shape that has 3 places together, notice instead of distance, I now have perimeter and area. This would be a really great lesson for bringing in math to your locations and your maybe social studies or geography lesson that you're having. So the measurement tool over here allows you to do distance and area of locations on your map, which is really handy and helpful. Okay, before I close out the tutorial, I just want to mention these buttons over here on the right, which I haven't mentioned yet. You can see right now we're in 2D and we're looking kind of down on our map. If I go to 3D, notice that it allows you to turn and move things around a little bit differently than we were before. So if I want to kind of get to another area and I don't want it to just be 2D, I can change those around by switching these options from 2D to 3D. This also gives you a street view where literally we can see the streets, and if I click on an area, it'll take me literally down to that street area where I can then move around and look at the streets from this angle as opposed to such a high level that we were at before. So this street level will do that for you. All right, so that's going to wrap up Google Earth for us, and I hope you can see the possibilities that exist here inside of this tool. Together with Google Jamboard and Google Keep, this is just 3 of the many tools that Google have, but I hope you can see how all 3 of them might be helpful in education in your classes or even just for you. So I encourage you to give them a try and see how you might be able to incorporate them into your classes.